Hello, listeners. I'm Arjun, and you're listening to Orbo Vinyl's freewheeling restoration of the art of telling. With the sixth episode knocking the door today and turning the page, I will be sharing with you a very interesting conversation with a storyteller, but in a very unique manner. What about a storyteller who tells stories through pictures, through sketches, illustrations, and graphics? Well, telling a story through a picture is very exciting and adventurous at the same time. And I would be introducing to you today a name in the world of graphic novel, comic writing, and visual storytelling. It is notable visual artist and visual storyteller Harsho Mohan Chottoraj. Dear listeners, let's welcome Harsho Mohan Chottoraj on board. Hello Harsho, welcome to Abo Vinyls on behalf of our audience and Team Abo.
Thank you, Arjun. Nice to meet you.
First, I would like to know what is a story to you? I mean, how does a story appeals to you?
Well, I'm a comic creator and a graphic novelist. So for me, a story in that terms can be one thing, and a story in general is something else altogether. A story normally is a way of telling an idea, what you have in your mind. It can be fiction, it can be non-fiction, it can be something you've seen in real life, it can be something you've heard from somebody else. How you outpour your ideas in a particular way, that's what forms a story. So, for example, you can talk about fictional stories, you can talk about non-fictional stories, you can talk about falling in the same line of non-fiction. You can have your own experiences, your own thoughts. Those things are basically stories. When you talk about certain ideas that you have, that can also be juxtaposed into the field of stories that way.
This actually intrigues me with a question. Just as you are into visual storytelling, you're a comic writer. Um, what do you think? Visual depiction of a story, visual element in a story, uh, does this fast stretches the ability of a story to communicate?
Of course, story can be told in a number of ways. Stories, right at the beginning, we have no way of knowing exactly, but it was told that humans, when they started storytelling, they used to narrate the stories.
Right.
And then they started drawing it, sketching it. Maybe not on paper, it wasn't in, it wasn't available then, but they used to sketch it on rocks. They used to use rocks to scribble it on the walls and stuff like that.
Right.
So basically, for me, a story has a meaning when it comes not only with the idea in words, but also with some pictorial element involved.
Right. So this pictorial form of storytelling, it has always been there. I mean, since the prehistoric
Of course,
times,
if
as
you
you
look at the
see.
Egyptian times, Egyptian mythology, you search in Google for Egyptian mythology,
Yeah.
you'll see lots of carvings on the walls.
Yeah.
And where you see some idea of what the pharaohs look like,
Right.
what the different kings over there, what the people's subjects look like.
Hmm.
So if you look at Greek mythology, so lots of that comes from the artworks that we see scribbled on the different artifacts.
Even in the Oriental world, I mean, in China, in India,
more so,
in Japan.
more so.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Japan has a very strong history of visual storytelling.
Absolutely.
In a way.
Absolutely. So that
Right.
way, basically, historically, if we are speaking, stories started with a pictorial outlook as well,
Right.
where the stories are conveyed through, well, in the previous days, in the earlier days, there was very little means of writing the text down, writing the information down.
Right.
So it came through word of mouth. But along with propagating your ideas and your stories through word of mouth, you also have to have some means of showcasing what you have in mind. So that has to be done pictorially in some form or the other. It may not be the amazing art style that we see nowadays, which we see rampant in the movies and comics and books, but it was a particular style invented by a particular country or a particular type of people, group of people, so to communicate with their own people around them.
Right.
So
Right.
that art style is a must because it conveys the depth, the meaning of the story. So a little pictorial element is always involved. And in recent times, due to the films, due to the books, that has reached a new level altogether.
Right.
So what earlier used to be, let's say, one illustration sketched on a mug or something sketched on the wall, from that we moved to a completely different dimension altogether. Where if you're trying to tell a story, for example, for picture books for kids, nowadays it's such a popular medium for young children to get to know about different stories and ideas. You can't have a story written on paper without at least three-fourths of the page being used for artwork and illustrations. And that goes the same thing for adults as well. Nowadays, picture books are famous and very useful because they're not only being used for conveying means and information to children, but also to adults.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's where the field of comics actually came into the focus quite some time back and went out of focus. But right now, we're trying to again see how it can be used to give information to people.
And getting into this topic of comics, my next question is, in fact, this is so very interesting if we come down to our own Bengali and Indian literature, that specifically if I talk about Bengali literature, there has been a long, interesting history about illustration storytelling. If we look at the works of Upendra Kishore Roy Chaudhary and Shukumar Rai, how he propounded interesting visuals with the art of storytelling, and also the other fablic and folklores in Bengali literature. We have always been seeing interesting illustrations and visuals.
Correct.
So, how do you connect to it?
As in you're saying, whether we see it in Bengal only or whether we see it.
No, if I specifically coined down in Bengali literature.
Well, I would say one particular example I would note is, let's say, the successor of the two writers you named, for example, Chitra Rai.
Yeah.
His writing so far has been so very influential to not only children but those of us who have grown up and become adults right now.
In fact, he has so much of contributions in visual storytelling.
Absolutely. And that's the one area where I think people all over the world, where they look at Shobhit Rai as a filmmaker, they hardly realize that he's also an author. He's written so many books.
True.
And he's also an amazing illustrator, one of the best illustrators we've had in Bengal for a long, long time.
Right.
But unfortunately, forget the rest of the world. The rest of India doesn't really realize the fact that we have hidden behind, our name, such a lovely artist who has worked in the field of advertising, he worked in the field of filmmaking, of writing, of drawing, and he had the depths which, made him draw in different styles and explore different ways of conveying the information. Different stories can be expressed in different ways through the illustration. So that he had done, which, I find his predecessor's artwork also very nice. But compared to them, I find Shobhit Rai's work and in recent times Debashish Dev's work more fruitful for telling a story, for example.
So in a way, Harsho, could we say that the comic storytelling in India and indigenously comic storytelling in Bengal always had this history of illustration storytelling, like as we discussed of Upendra Kishore, Shukumar Rai, Satyajit Rai's Feluda, his own creative detective character, which always had very interesting visuals in between the pages. So do you think these things actually added to the comic story or visual storytelling in Bengal?
In a way, I would say yes. But again, the idea of comics in Bengal is a very, very weird story because we've had amazing creators in the past.
Yes.
Okay, let me try you with this. Who's the creator of Matul the Great? Let me see if you know the name.
Narayan Devnath, of course.
Of course.
Reverend comic
And
storyteller.
who was the first Bengali woman to create a comic?
Well,
I can't remember the name, so
yeah, I would like to know the name, definitely.
I can't recall the name myself right now, but we were researching into her in one of the anthologies we are trying to make right now, where one of the professors from one of the universities. She'll be writing an article about her.
Okay.
So apparently there were amazing writers and creators who delved into sci-fi, horror, different fields, and they worked in the field of comics. But thing is, in Kolkata, as we said, we are Bengalis and we have a very healthy habit of avoiding most of the things that we don't know anything about or have least inclination to know anything about. People like Shrotraj Rai, we know a little bit about him, so if we see Shrotraj Rai, we jump with joy and say yes. If we see, like you said, Narayan Devnath, we'll say yes. But the content that we don't know much about, we have the least inclination to know about them, to figure out who these people are. So that's the sad reason why in Bengal, for example, we have had so many good comic creators in the past, and we have so many good comic creators right now. But the people's enthusiasm, interest, you know, feeling, the gut feel to go and check out the works of the Bengali comic creators is sadly missing. And until that comes in,
Right.
we can't expect anything great to happen from our city. Most of the comic creators we had in our city, with us, the last 20, 30 years, basically they have given up hopes of working in the city. They basically, all of them shifted to either Bangalore or Pune or Mumbai. Why? Hoping for more jobs, hoping for recognition. So the good writers and artists we had in the field of comics, most of them simply said, we are resigned. We have no choice. We will not live here. But there is still a hope. Right now, in recent times, there have been, so I've been talking, I know, slightly negatively, but
But this is definitely
this is not just a
the
field
other
of
side.
comics. This is in the field of literature as well. So we had some amazing writers in the past. And I'm not saying we don't have good writers now. We have. We have Himadri, for example, good friend,
With Kaushik
who's writing.
Majumdar.
Yes, Kaushik, who's doing amazing stuff.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is that they're not the only ones who are writing, right? There are roughly around 100 people, let's say, who are writing. But sadly enough, just in the field of comics, only about 2 or 3 names are recognized. The other 95 people are not being paid attention to, or not being, people are not realizing that these are also writers.
Yes, and
So once have a look at their work, check out their works right now. So that's a very
there
sad
aren't
thing.
any dearth of stories. Stories
Oh
are
yes,
there.
absolutely. And the style of writing of some of the young writers and some of the old writers as well, who sadly enough people haven't recognized or realized their importance, is amazing. And if we can do that in our city, I know we have very little chance of getting funding from the government or anything like that. It may happen in other countries, I don't know. In India, I have seen it sort of missing. But at least the government tried a little bit recently in comics to try and fund the field of comics a little bit at the event in Mumbai recently. But even then, I think right now the propaganda is how do we make ourselves known in the field of, let's say, films, which you're in the field of writing, which some of my friends are in the field of comics. How do we make ourselves more widely known to the people so that they can understand who we are and what we are doing? So that I can only hope that people will appreciate, and they can only appreciate. Sadly enough, the scene right now, nowadays in the digital culture, digital being is that if somebody big says that you are good, then the public spotlight will go on you. Then the journalists will reach out to you. For example, I've seen this thing happening in the comics field at least. I don't know, it might be the same in the film field as well, cinematic field.
Yeah, this is kind of a stereotypism of the media and the social process altogether. One thing, just as you were speaking, and we were discussing about
Sure.
the recent evolution of stories, writers of the yester generation and today's generation. I would like to know, in fact, I think our audience would, listeners would also like to know,
Sure.
what is the basic difference between comic storytelling and nowadays we hear graphic novel, graphic storytelling?
We fall under the same culture. We have basically comics is the main source.
Yeah.
It can be a comic. It can be by comic we are referring to a small comic. The moment the number of pages exceeds a certain number, goes beyond, let's say, 80, 90, 100, and it tells a complete story, a full package is given, that can be termed as a graphic novel. Then you have a comic series, like say the trade paperback series, like what DC and Marvel does. They, for example, Superman comic or a Batman comic is just one character, but you have one storyline and you have a number of issues, where each issue has a certain number of pages in it, and the story continues through the arc.
So could they be called as a graphic novel? Maybe a
Technically, you can't.
Okay.
Because you have to call it a comic series.
Comic series.
So, and then once it gets compiled together in a book format, let's say issue 1 or volume 1, it'll be called a TPB or a trade paperback.
Okay.
That's how these books come out.
So, in the same manner, do you think the stories of Phantom, created by Lee Falk,
those are comics? Those are comic stories only.
Similarly,
comic issues.
Similarly,
they were
Tintin,
comic issues.
created by
Tintin, technically, I suppose, can be called a comic. Each story is a different one.
Yes.
So technically, I believe the Tintin and Asterix, even though they're called, but actually they're called comics only, because the story is within 40, 50, 45, 50 pages, and the story finishes. And then again, you have Tintin book number 2.
Yes.
So book number 1, book number 2, book number 3. Yes. So once you, basically the graphic novel is the story starts and ends.
Right.
You can of course have, I'm sure, book 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But that way Tintin is more a comic series that way. But again, comic and comic book, comic issue, there are particular terms, like for example, like I was talking about the American comics DC and Marvel produces. So they have a certain length, a number of pages, right? 24, 25, 30 pages, roughly around about that. Whereas graphic novels are bigger numbers. And nowadays, the twist is that in the last 15, 20 years, due to the advent of web comics, things have changed quite a lot. Because right now, even for example, the comics that DC is bringing out, let's say, the same thing is out on the webcomic platform as well. So you can check it out, the comic, on your mobile, on your tablet, on your computer, as well as out in print. And nowadays it's become the premise of most readers, at least, I don't know, some of them prefer reading it on the mobile because it's easier that way, it's cheaper. So if you're buying it online, so the price will be slightly less than on the physical copies, where earlier we had an advantage in India, back in the 90s, back in 2000, we had the advantage that there were groups like Gotham Comics and others who were actually having a contract with these publishers abroad. And as a result, the comics we finally got in our hands, we got at pretty cheap and decent prices, $20, $30 or so. But nowadays, the same comics, if we try to get hold of them, they will cost us 500, 600, which is not reasonable for normal every readers. So as a result, that's why the intent has gone from why should we spend so much money and buy a comic like that. But that's again moving away from the situation outside India. Within India, lots of comics have been created by a number of good houses. But so they charge a certain amount, but it's, I think, well reasonable to charge that because printing expenses are pretty high. And there are some webcomic portals as well. But in India, right now, I would say I prefer looking at the creators in India, the independent creators, the indie comics. So we have a group also like that, and every year, apart from the Comic Cons which happen all over India.
Do you think, Harsho, in the recent times, the technology-based surge, AI, is it actually creating a Star Trek to visual storytelling?
Yeah, I would say so. Because I can't name names. It won't be right for me to give particular names of particular houses and particular concerns, because most of them are friends. But I have seen AI being used to generate content quite a lot. And well, I'm in Kolkata, so I'm a Bengali, so I've seen lots of Bengali books having covers which are done using complete AI. So, and some of them aren't without the AI problem where you see multiple fingers, like 6 fingers and weird things like that. They're actually looking very, very nice. And it makes us wonder where are the actual artists, going? I mean, what will happen to us?
I personally feel that, this is my opinion, Harsho, which I would like to share with you, that artificial intelligence, which is creating, option for creating illustrated visuals. I don't think so that it can actually kill the artistry, the real artistry, the acumen of a
Hopefully
visual
not.
artist.
Hopefully not, because most of the readers, thankfully, still recognize particular art styles
Because
which they're
there is
familiar with.
the intricate human sense, human sensibility.
That's the general thought which we normally give. But at the end of the day, technically, in India, really, if we're listening to a story, if there's an audiobook, we give very little note to the illustration at the end of the day. We don't consider it much. In comics, we have to, because that's the one thing that always sets a story ahead.
Right.
But as far as book illustrations are concerned, I would say that the illustrations are the last point, something that you need to have as a backdrop. That's it.
Right.
So it doesn't make much sense. So there, but again, I've seen the AI artworks used in some of the books, audiobooks and stuff, for example, are very nice, very interesting.
Okay.
And that's where the worry comes in. If the AI style is so nice, will the readers, the young readers of today, who scarcely read books anymore, who are happy with listening AI content, which is actually a good thing because we would like more kids to read books, whether it's Bengali, English, Hindi, whatever.
That is
the more,
necessary.
The more they read, the better for us.
Definitely necessary.
But like I'm saying, at the end of the day, if the content is AI generated, then the worry factor is this, that with AI, I'm not saying the artwork is like horrible or bad. It's actually very nice, very beautiful. But it's the same style that you more or less see.
Right.
The AI generated content, it looks a lot similar
Right.
throughout. And even though the artworks are very nice, and you can't expect the normal human artist to be that good with depicting, let's say, a particular person or a particular object or a particular thing. So that creates the possible problem is that the idea in the minds of the viewers becomes that fine, this is the okay art style. This is the style we want every artist to have, but you can't have that. Every artist will have his or her own way of drawing, own way of conveying information.
True.
And if you are expecting that from the artists, that clearness, that visibility, that exact real type thing, that will not happen.
Right.
But again, in the field of comics, we have seen this quite a lot in recent times. AI is being used to generate art. Thankfully, for publication houses like Amar Chitrakatha, one that I'm part of, for the last 15, 16 years, I haven't seen any use of AI there.
Right.
And the comics that all of us writers and artists are doing, we are doing in person. We are not using AI to do that.
Right.
So, for example, every month, the fact that I do 15 pages of comics, I'm not using AI to generate my images and prepare them for me. So I'm having to look at the script, which is done by a human being,
Right.
not by a robot or by a computer. I'm actually penciling, inking, gray toning if required, and doing the layout also previously to that. The lettering is being done by a human person. So these are being done. These are tricky processes, stuff which AI can do very quickly, I'm quite sure.
Right.
But again, but AI is a factor. I'm not saying it's a negative thing. If we can put AI to a certain use, I don't see how it won't be helpful to us. For example, in comics, we can use AI. We can use it to generate references for us. But as long as we stick to that and not take it further and make the AI the artist in command and whatnot, I think we are in an okay state.
Right. You mean to say that AI is useful for as much as storyboarding is concerned?
No,
Now,
not that. But
nowadays, I see in our
sadly enough,
filmmaking,
yes, storyboarding
is conducted with AI, which never used to be because
yes, can't imagine it also. Because I used to do storyboarding for films myself, short films.
as a filmmaker, I believe, as a visualizer, I believe that it is something of the human deliverance which will actually finally create the visual structure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the fact that storyboarding is being done by AI nowadays, where a scriptwriter, let's say, prompts over there, see it from this angle and do that. So I find this slightly weird.
Right.
I mean, sadly enough, in India, the concept of storyboarding went out of popularity quite a long time back. Well, not because we didn't want to, we did, but we didn't have the financial resources, as simple as that. So the ad houses earlier, which used to get storyboards done by artists, freelance artists, and those who were working full time also, that sort of went down, slipped away a long, long time back because of lack of funds, lack of different clients, and the client's interest in that quite some time back. And for actual films to have storyboarding, like let's say what Shweta used to do,
Yeah.
you haven't seen that. In fact, I remember asking Sandeep a long, long time back.
Sandeep Roy has.
I can you do storyboarding for you if required.
Yeah.
So, but this was like a long, long time back. I don't know if I remember Master Fit or he remembers. But not just him, some other film directors also that I met up once in a while with. And I got the feeling that they said it's not really required. Or sometimes some of the good film directors right now, nowadays, who are doing films and TV serials for Hoi Choi and others, I'm sure they have teams within their company only
They do
who
have.
are doing the work for them.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the chance for you to use resources externally, freelancers, has gone down. But again, the fact that good things are being done in the cinematic industry, in the comics industry, in the books, we can only hope for more. In Kolkata, I see the chances of things getting better in the literary medium is I'm seeing a positive look in recent times. In recent times, we have seen an interest generated through a number of events happening. The first time this year, we had the Comic Con in our city. So, for the last 15, 16 years that the Comic Con has been here, Kolkata was never a spot. But finally, this year it happened. This year, we're having a number of events. Later on in June, I'll be having one chat over here at Tintin's with another very good creator, Ohik. He's also a good comic book artist.
Okay.
And we'll be having an event with TASI, which is the Animation Society of India, where I'll be taking care of the comic segment with a workshop over there. And so like this, every month we'll try to do at least 4 or 5 events so that the people, get aware a little bit. That has to be done.
Remarkable.
That information has to be propagated.
So many eventualities are happening in Kolkata about visual storytelling. Now, before we wind up, I would like to ask a question that tell us something about Harsha Mohan Chattaraj has carved out a niche name and a popular name in graphic storytelling in Kolkata as well as in India. So what was the triggering point that made Harsha Mohan Chattaraj a graphic artist, a visual storyteller, a comic writer?
Well, I started reading comics when I was a kid, and I started drawing also when I was a kid. And the one thing about me is I didn't think of learning how to draw. I didn't need to learn. I saw comics and I used to draw from them. So I took references from the material which I had in hand. So I remember the first comic that I read was probably an Asterix.
So you were self-taught?
Yes. And I'm saying this is one thing that potential creators in the comic medium or the animation medium need to know, that you don't have to actually go to college and be trained as an artist. You don't have to go to art school and art college and learn there and get a degree to term yourself as an artist or a graphic novelist or an animator. As long as you have the interest, the enthusiasm to do it yourself, to create something yourself. That's why in the workshop that I do, I teach the youngsters and even the oldsters that you don't have to have experience, you don't have to have knowledge. Creating a comic is as easy as writing a short story. So figure out what you want to, pass on to the people around you, and see how you can cut it into the comic format. That's a very simple format. It doesn't have to be taught also. The moment you see it, you realize it's a very, very easy format. You just take your picture, your story, your idea, and see it in a number of frames, as simple as that. So that way, the idea of filmmaking, the idea of animation, the idea of comic creation, the idea of storyboarding, all these ideas are actually, you don't need to go, you don't need to, well, if you want to go in depth into it, yes, you'll have to do courses, you'll have to learn, you have to read books, you have to perceive what other creators have done. But for you to start off, you don't need to learn too much. It's very little. But the one requirement that is certainly there is persistence and practice. If you don't, for example, if you want to be a comic creator, and if you don't practice, then you're getting nowhere. And same thing for an animator or a filmmaker or a voiceover artist, whatever field you're going in, you have to have the intent.
Wonderful. It was absolutely a profound session listening to you,
Thank you.
coming to know about so many unheard stories, unheard histories about, I should say, history about visual storytelling in India and Kolkata, the present situation. Once again, Harsho, thanks a lot from our audience and Team Obo.
Thanks, Ratan,
And
for having me
we
over here.
wish you a very bright and colorful, creative time ahead.
Thank you so much, Ratan. Thank you.
Dear listeners, I'm quite sure it was as engaging for you as well as it was for me to hear Harshamohan Chattoraj speaking on the insight of being a creator of the image, motif, texture, color, which actually combines and puts forward to us the beautiful array of graphic novel or visual storytelling or a comic book. His sharp speculation on the use of AI imaging and the application of artificial intelligence in the visual storytelling scenario is really very interesting. And somewhere it is definitely a question whether a graphic storytelling, a visual storytelling will depend on completely a software guided technology, or is it the organicity of a visual artist? I leave the question to you, audience, to see and think what and how will visual storytelling come and re-evolve in the future time. So as I bid farewell for the day, I would like to remind you that we will be coming back with more such stories only on Obo. Till then, stay well, stay in peace, and stay tuned to Obo.